You are listening to Frankly Speaking Panthers on Tobacco Road Sports Radio.com. Ladies and gentlemen, the other day I'm looking around and I'm saying, I need to become part of a Carolina Panthers group that stays positive even in these tough times. And I'll tell you what, boy, have I found a group, the Carolina Panthers Den. It's on Facebook and you need to join today. This is a group that stays positive, has a good time, and interacts with a lot of other different Carolina Panthers fans. If you want to have a great time and talk about your team, encourage your team in a way that is done very professionally, then become a member of the Carolina Panthers Den on Facebook. Make sure to join today. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another episode of Frankly Speaking Panthers. On behalf of all of us here at Frankly Speaking Panthers, we want to wish every single one of you and your families a very happy Thanksgiving. In about probably about 25 minutes, we're going to have Alain Poupart, publisher of All Dolphins for Sports Illustrated. He's covered the Dolphins for various publications and media outlets since 1989. He'll be joining us to help us break down this game between the Panthers and the Miami Dolphins. But before we get to him in 25 minutes, boy, do we have a lot to talk about. First of all you folks listening on different platforms, if you can please do me a favor, share this to your timeline. It takes 1 second. 1 second, hit the share button, and that way all Panther fans, including yourself, can go ahead and join us as well. Also, we encourage and really get excited about fans leaving comments. So if you're a Panther fan, whether you're watching the show live or on tape, go ahead and leave the comments. We love to read them. If you're doing it live, we'll try to actually respond back to your comment to go ahead and let you know what we think, or if we're thinking the same thing or maybe something different. But remember, on this show, we agree to disagree. So there may be times that we don't agree, but that is okay. As we just go ahead and make sure everything is working properly. But this weekend, we are in Miami, all you Panther fans. The Panthers, 5-6, head over to the Miami Dolphins, who are 4-7 now. Remember this, folks. This is a Miami Dolphin team that has started the season 1-7, and over the last 3 games have won all of them. So they're on a 3-game winning streak heading into this game this Sunday versus the Panthers. So watch out for this team. A lot of you, I know, you say, well, Larry, they haven't played great teams. It don't matter. The Carolina Panthers have proven that it doesn't matter who you play. On any given day, any team can beat any team. And give credit to the Dolphins. I know one of them was versus the Jets. One of the wins was versus the Ravens. Give them credit where credit is due, as they have definitely gone on to win these games. And Sunday's going to be no different for the Panthers. This is a good football team. The record doesn't necessarily indicate how good they are, but, they're getting better on offense. They don't have much of a rushing attack, but they also play a decent defense, especially in the last 3 games, and especially up front. They are one of the highest rated teams in actually rushing the quarterback this year, high percentage of the time. So you are going to see a lot of blitzes coming through from this Miami Dolphins football team. And I'm going to tell you real simple. First of all, before I tell you, I do want to thank all of the people that currently are listening on Facebook Live, YouTube Live, Twitter Live, and of course, our home radio network, Tobacco Road Sports Radio. Happy Thanksgiving again to you all, and we are going to now to preview the game between the Dolphins and the Panthers, but this game is real simple. Whoever wins this game in the trenches will win the game. Will automatically win the game. This is an offensive line by the Carolina Panthers that has struggled at times this year, especially with the penalties. You're not going to be able to give this team lots of penalties and have plays get called back if you're going to win this game. Last week, Christian McCaffrey, a couple of big runs, called back by holding penalties, okay? This is where you got to be disciplined. This offensive line has to show up. They needed to look in the mirror. They need to say, hey, we need to play better, and we need to play mistake-free football with this offensive line. Can't have these holding penalties, tripping penalties, illegal procedure penalties. That has to stop. You have to take advantage of every opportunity that you get to get yardage. You can't give back because of silly penalties. Number 2, I don't know why, folks, but why Brady Christensen, this guy is not starting, is beyond me. All we hear this team bitching about is our offensive line is rough. Our offensive line is rough. Oh, by the way, our offensive line is rough. It is rough. They're not playing well. Yet the guy who's playing the best football on your offensive line is a percentage of the time sitting his butt on the sidelines until somebody gets hurt. It does not make sense. Brady Christensen has proven that when he is in the game, a lot better things happen between the running game and the passing game. We switch over to the defensive side of the trenches. Our defense needs to come back and play the way they did before last week. Last week's game is over. You have to forget last week. Dante Jackson has to forget last week. This is a team that has to put pressure on Tua if they're gonna win. Tua is the type of guy that can break tackles, make things happen with his feet. You have to go ahead and play this team with aggressive, high pressure on the quarterback, and you will succeed. Okay, this team isn't a type of team that runs well. They don't run very well, okay? This is a team that is averaging about 77 yards a game. So you're going to be able to key on Tua. Now, I say they're only averaging 77 yards a game, but look what Washington did last week. So this team is going to have to play. The defense is going to have to swarm, and they're going to have to force turnovers from the Miami Dolphins. Cam Newton. We heard a lot about Cam last week. Some people say he played efficient. Some people said he played well. Some people said he played too conservative. At the end of the day, Cam Newton has to be able to throw some footballs downfield in order to win this game. This is a defense that if you do not open up the game and throw some passes downfield to Robbie Anderson, to DJ Moore, they're going to simply key on Christian McCaffrey and high pressure your quarterback to cause mistakes. You can't allow them to do that. How do you keep them from doing that? You start passing to other receivers. Christian McCaffrey can't be the entire game, although you do need to establish a running game, no one's denying that. At the end of the day, you got to mix it up. You got to be balanced, and you got to utilize McCaffrey in those situations. But I'm going to tell you right now, folks, the big factor in this game, and you heard this probably first on Frankly Speaking Panthers tonight, is going to be how effective is Cam Newton using his tight ends, Ian Thomas and Tommy Tremble. They have to get a lot more involved, and especially with the quarterback who right now showed last week he still struggles to throw the ball downfield. If he is not going to be able to consistently throw the ball downfield to Robbie Anderson or DJ Moore or Terrence Marshall, then the only other people besides Christian McCaffrey out of the backfield or Amir Abdullah is your tight ends. You start throwing some nice, 6, 7 yard, 10-yard passes to your tight end, they're going to key up on your tight ends. You're going to open up the running game more for McCaffrey and be a lot more successful with a well-balanced offense. But you got to run the ball more. You got to run it more than last week, okay? This is not the Cam Newton show. And no disrespect towards Cam Newton, but at the end of the day, it takes all 11 men on each side of the football and the ones that are subbing in on the sidelines to go ahead and win a football game. And Cam has to remember that, okay? McCaffrey, I'm assuming he's learning the playbook a lot more than last week. And please help me at least believe that they went over the 2-minute drill in practice this week in case it does come up. Now, I will tell you something. The more points that are scored in this game, the better for the Panthers. The Dolphins don't score a lot of points. I think they're averaging roughly 18 points a game, not a whole lot. So if it ends up being a game that is low scoring, it's going to play more into the game of the way the Miami Dolphins want to play. So you got to come out and you got to score points. The running back is Myles Gaskins, okay? He's not an overpowering running back. He's not. He does eventually, I think he caught a touchdown pass out of the backfield last week versus the New York Jets, but you can't allow this guy to get big yards. This guy is not a big yard running back. Don't make him look like the next coming of Christian McCaffrey or Derrick Henry. This is a guy, if lucky, should get 30 to 50 yards rushing, and that's it. This game should lie on the balance of how successful Tua is in this game. If Tua is not successful, they should not win. Okay, we talked about Brady Christensen playing. I'm not going to go over that. But as I said, Miami doesn't have an hour of power in offense. Listen to this. They're averaging 77.4 yards rushing per game, 18.3 points total per game. So their offense does not score a lot of points. Maybe versus the Jets they did, but okay, that's the Jets. No discredit. They're an NFL team, but they're not playing well this year. This is a game where you got to score points. You got to score them quickly, and you got to score them often, okay? You need to remember a couple things, folks. And when we come back, we're going to talk about how important this game is for the Carolina Panthers. We'll be back right after this. You are listening to Frankly Speaking Panthers on TobaccoRoadSportsRadio.com. Ladies and gentlemen, the other day I'm looking around and I'm saying, I need to become part of a Carolina Panthers group that stays positive even in these tough times. And I'll tell you what, boy, have I found a group the Carolina Panthers Den. It's on Facebook, and you need to join today. This is a group that stays positive, has a good time, and interacts with a lot of other different Carolina Panthers fans. If you want to have a great time and talk about your team, encourage your team in a way that is done very professionally, then become a member of the Carolina Panthers Den on Facebook. Make sure to join today. Welcome back to Frankly Speaking Sports. Want to thank all of you for joining once again this evening. Happy Thanksgiving to you and your families. For those of you watching this show live, if you can do me a favor, take one moment, share this to your timeline. Even if you're watching on the tape, please go ahead, share this to your timeline so as many Panther fans in Panther Nation can go ahead and watch one of the fastest growing Internet Panthers show around. And I want to thank, first of all, everybody on Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, Tobacco Road Sports Radio for making that possible. It is amazing on our Monday and Wednesday shows when we primarily talk about we talk about Carolina teams on Monday, but we mix it up. But a lot of our talk is the post-game highlights from the Panthers' previous game, and then obviously on Frankly Speaking Panthers on Wednesday night, the outpour of listeners have been tremendous, and we can't thank you enough for doing everything that you do possible to make our show continue to grow. And one of those ways you've done that is by sharing this to your timeline. If everyone just shares this to their timeline, as many listeners as we get, we can double our listeners and fans very, very quickly. We want to thank all the Carolina Panther groups that are out there for continuously putting us on their page or their groups and allowing their listeners and fans and members to watch this show as well. But, I got a text message here asking about, do you think Cam still has the ability to throw the long ball? And, we talked about that briefly, that he's going to have to in order to be successful, especially in this upcoming game coming up this Sunday. But we don't know yet. Okay, Cam needs to show, not the fans, the heck with the fans, the hell with the media. At the end of the day, he needs to show other teams that he has the ability to take the football and to do almost anything any normal quarterback can do under any condition. And one of that things is be able to throw the ball downfield. We did not see that versus Washington. What did he average? 5 yards per pass in the air? I mean, that's not saying much for Cam. And I know part of that was probably because he didn't need or didn't know the playbook as well as he'll know it this week. And believe me, he'll get to know it with this bye week coming up, which we'll talk about in a minute. But at the end of the day, if he's not ready, then you got to put PJ in. Okay? There's certain situations that require you to have the ability to throw the ball deep. And if Cam can't do it, then you got to put someone in that can. But I think Cam can do it. It was just a matter of maybe learning some of those deep ball routes and stuff. And I think and I hope that we'll see some more of that this upcoming Sunday versus the Dolphins. But if you're not able to do that, you pretty much limit the offense to what they can do. The defense on the other side of the balls, and these defenses are so much quicker nowadays in the NFL, they will squash you up and destroy you if you're not able to throw the ball deep. What does that mean for the Panthers if they can't throw the ball deep? Well, the defense is going to key on Christian McCaffrey. You key on the only source of yardage that you have, then you are stopped. It's not a science, anything, that takes you to be smart to figure out. Okay, this is very simple football 101. If you want to be able to do things, you got to be able to mix it up. You got to do RPOs, and you got to be able to be successful. By being successful, folks, with the long pass, now you take those cornerbacks, you take those secondary players, the secondary, they start pushing back. So now they know you can throw the ball. And what does that do? Now all Christian McCaffrey has to do is get through that, hope our offensive line can defeat their defensive line, and you will have some beautiful opportunities to run the ball effectively, as long as your, like we said earlier, your offensive line doesn't get stupid penalties that cost you big yardage. But in the event that they don't throw down deep, that's what's going to happen. So they're going to end up, hey, Cam can't throw deep. We can play up. We can play in. He's only going to throw 5 yards. Boy, oh boy, that works right into what Miami wants to do. And as I said earlier, Miami rushes the quarterback and blitzes one of the highest percentage in the NFL. So Cam's going to be under a lot of pressure. But Cam has the ability not to just throw the ball. Now he has an opportunity to run the ball as well. But he's got to use his weapons, and he's got to use, once again, those tight ends could help him out so immensely if they just start using them. They got 2 good tight ends in Ian Thomas and Tommy Tremble. Why don't they use them more? Why don't they use them more effectively? I do not know. But one thing I will tell you, folks, is after this game, there's a 2-week layoff now. You don't play until we play the Buffalo Bills again in Orchard Park, New York, 2 weeks from Sunday. It's our bye week. So that gives Cam 2 more weeks to learn this offense. But if Cam can win, if the Panthers can win this game, this upcoming Sunday, they are 6-6. Okay, they'll be right in there. Maybe not if the season ended Sunday, but they'll still have good control over wild card plays. Should they win, they're 6-6 with 5 games remaining. Okay, 5 games remaining, 6-6. Our hope is they win 3 of the last 5 games. And that's not going to be easy. Like I said on my show Monday, the only game they need to be thinking about right now is the Miami game. But I'm going ahead saying if they win, then they got Atlanta. They got, well, obviously Buffalo first. I believe they play Buffalo, Atlanta, New Orleans, and then stuck in between that is a home and away series against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, who they played the last 2 out of 3 games this season. By the time those Tampa Bay Buccaneer games come up, Cam Newton should be in full form then. But this is how I look at it. And once again, we know no win is a definite win in Carolina. Believe me, we found that out, unfortunately, several times already this year. But if you go in there and you beat Miami, you should be able to beat Atlanta. So there are 2 games right there, okay? And you never know what happens with New Orleans, who's quarterbacking. Right now, it looks like Trevor Siemian. So that is 3 out of 5 wins right there, which give you 9 victories, okay, this year. Even if you lost to Buffalo and 2 to the Buccaneers, you would be 9-8. I believe that one of those 2 games in Tampa Bay could be won by Carolina. And I'll tell you why, folks. The reason why one of those games could be a victory is because they may not mean anything for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. That last game of the season that they play, I believe it's in Tampa. Don't quote me. I'm not looking at the schedule. Away in Tampa, if Tampa Bay has already, sealed up a playoff spot, sealed up the conference, they may decide to rest a Tom Brady or rest a Godwin or an Evans. We don't know. But it doesn't matter unless you start winning the games before that. And its first game starts off with Miami this Sunday. So the weather should not be an issue unless it rains, but we know what the weather's like in Florida, so it should be pretty warm. This is a game that the Panthers should win. But I said last week was a game the Panthers should have won too. And look what the Washington football team did on the ground. And look what Taylor Heineke did through the air. We can't allow that same thing. We got to walk into this game like we are playing a Super Bowl. And our job is to go in and to smash the heck out of the Miami Dolphins if you want to win. The attitude has to be win at all costs. And, not everybody's got to be held accountable for doing their job, which we'll talk about a little more after our interview that's coming up. But I just want to remind you all that we'll have Alain Poupart here in about 4 minutes coming up. He is a publisher of the All Dolphins for Sports Illustrated. He has covered the Dolphins since 1989 for various publications and media outlets. So that should be one heck of an interview we got coming up in about 3 to 4 minutes. So please don't miss that. Share it to your timeline and allow your friends to go ahead and see that. But this is going to be a tough game. Don't think it's not. And like I said earlier, it only plays into the favor of the Carolina Panthers. And I know I sound like a broken record. The more points that are scored, the better for the Panthers, because Miami is not a team that averages a lot of points. If you can score 21 plus points on this Miami Dolphins football team, you should be able to win, because Miami doesn't average more than 18. Okay. So, but then again, they got some adrenaline going. They won 3 in a row. Don't tell this football team you didn't play anyone good. That's why you won. That's BS. They played 3 National Football League teams, and they won all 3 games. Started 1-7, they're now 4-7. They got a lot of momentum. They got a lot of energy. And you talk about this team in Carolina being revitalized. Well, this team in Miami is revitalized because they're starting to win. They're 3 in a row. In their eyes, they're going for 4 in a row. So it's our job to go in there in their home field and knock them out and get back to a 500 record at 6-6. Ladies and gentlemen, we're going to go ahead, take a quick break, and when we come back, we're going to have Alain Poupart from Sports Illustrated, who has covered the Miami Dolphins since 1989, will be joining us live. We'll be back right after this. You are listening to Frankly Speaking Panthers on TobaccoRoadSportsRadio.com. Ladies and gentlemen, the other day I'm looking around and I'm saying, I need to become part of a Carolina Panthers group that stays positive even in these tough times. And I'll tell you what, boy, have I found a group, the Carolina Panthers Den. It's on Facebook and you need to join today. This is a group that stays positive, has a good time, and interacts with a lot of other different Carolina Panthers fans. If you want to have a great time and talk about your team, encourage your team in a way that is done very professionally, then become a member of the Carolina Panthers Den on Facebook. Make sure to join today. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Frankly Speaking Sports. I'm your host, Larry Frank, and what a great show we've had so far this evening, and it's about to get even better. It is my great honor, thrill, and pleasure to introduce to you now publisher of All Dolphins for SI. He's covered the Dolphins for several media outlets, publications since 1989. Some of you weren't even born in 1989. Let's welcome in Alain Poupart. Alain, how you doing?
I'm doing good, Larry. You just called me old, I believe.
Not exactly. I'm old too. You know, I just graduated college then, man. So I know how, and it was actually in Miami where the Dolphins were training at St. Thomas University. So
very nice.
It just gives you, it's a small world out there that we live in. But let me do this. You know, this is a team, the Miami Dolphins. The way they finished off last year, a lot of people expecting a lot of things out of the Dolphins this year. Didn't start off well, as you know. They started off 1-7, but now they're 4-7. Looking from the outside in, and I know you don't want to go playoffs yet, but it's realistic with this new format and the 17 games. This is a team that has been on a 3-game winning streak right now. Talk about that winning streak, Alan, and what's been the major redirection of this team the last 3 games?
Yeah, here's the thing, though. If we're going to be honest, a big part of the 3-game winning streak is the schedule. Because those 3 wins were against Houston in Tyrod Taylor's first game back, and he looked like he had been off since week 2, I believe it was, that he'd been out, and he looked every bit of it. I mean, he was rusty and really had a poor outing. In fact, David Culley, the head coach, called him out on it, which is rare, but, I mean, he was really, really bad. And he's picked up his game since then. So that was one of the wins. They had the nice Thursday night win against Baltimore at Hard Rock Stadium, to where you don't necessarily mention the schedule as much or the quality of the opponent, except it's a short week at home. So that played a part in it. And then this past Sunday, they won against the Jets at MetLife Stadium. And we all know the Jets are not a very good team. Now, having said that, they've struggled on offense the entire year, pretty much. The defense didn't look a thing like it did in 2020 when it was really, really good. And that was a big reason why there was so much optimism heading into 2021, is everybody thought their defense was going to be lights out. Well, it didn't play out that way at all through the first 8 games of the season, although toward the beginning of that stretch, like the first half of the Week 8 game at Buffalo, I mean, they shackled Josh Allen. I don't remember what the score was. They wound up losing 26 or 27 to 11, but the Bills could do nothing in that first half, and the Dolphins looked every bit the same kind of defense they did in 2020, which is a ton of blitzing, making quarterbacks uncomfortable all over the place, swarming to the ball after it's out, tackling great. And they've continued that through the 3-game winning streak. And right now we're looking at them, and the offense has played fairly well in recent weeks. But again, we have to consider the quality of the opposition, and this is not going to be the same case when they play the Panthers on Sunday, because the Panthers have a very good defense. In fact, unless I'm mistaken, number 1 in the NFL in pass defense. Well, that certainly wasn't the case with Houston or with the Jets. And even earlier on, when Tua Tagovailoa came back from his rib injury and his first 2 starts were against Atlanta and Jacksonville. That said, the offense has been very efficient. They do an awful lot, a ton of stuff underneath. So if you're a fan of lights out passing, Dolphins ain't the team for you. Having said that, it's been very efficient, and against the Jets, I mean, Tua was 27 for 33. Can't beat that. And he wound up having one big play when the Jets had a busted coverage, and he found Matt Collins for a 65-yard touchdown pass. But the formula, if the Dolphins are going to continue winning, is going to be pretty much what it was in 2020, which is the offense doing just enough when needed, and then riding the defense, coming up with turnovers, and just being really stingy and going crazy with their blitzing.
Alan, talk about the importance of having Tua back healthy over Jacoby Brissett, because one thing I have noticed this year, and I'm sure you covering the team, you have to notice this, is that when 7 games that Tua has played, he's only been sacked 9 times. A little over 1 sack a game. But when Jacoby Brissett's been playing in the 8 games, he's been sacked 19 times. What do you think the reason for that is? Is it that, I mean, they seem like both mobile type. Obviously, Tua goes without saying, but why does it seem like when Jacoby's in there so much, Is it the lack of playing time Jacoby maybe's had in the last couple of years, or is it just that the mobility of Tua is that much more than Jacoby?
Well, the thing is, once they get going in the open field, they're both decent scramblers. Jacoby Brissett, for a guy who's big, actually is a pretty good scrambler.
Right.
Once he gets ahead of steam, but it takes him a while to get going, and a lot of times he hangs on to the ball too long, keeps looking and looking and looking, and boom, there's a sack. And that's been an issue. And whereas Tua gets the ball out very quickly, and then again, if we're going to look at the opponents that Tua has played against, it was Atlanta, Jacksonville, his last starts, and then the Jets, three teams that don't have good defenses, who don't cover very well off the snap, and the Dolphins had receivers wide open the entire game against Atlanta, against Jacksonville, against the Jets, to where Tua could get rid of the ball very quickly, which alleviated the pressure on the offensive line, which is not a good unit. Even though it played well against the Jets, which is something that some fans have a hard time accepting, that, yeah, sometimes the offensive line will play well, and they play well against the Jets. But I think, again, if they're playing a tough defense that covers well from the snap, it's going to be an issue, and it's going to be important to see what happens and whether it makes a difference, whether Tua or Jacoby Brissett's at quarterback in terms of sacks and the protection. I think, to me, that's a bigger factor than who's in that quarterback.
Well, you mentioned how this running game has to show up. The defense has to hold their own. But, Myles Gaskin, I really believe, is going to be a key this week in this game. And the Carolina defense of late, as you know, has been given up. Although they've been number one in pass defense, they haven't been that good on the rushing side of the football, giving up quite a few yards, a bunch of yards last week to the Washington football team. Talk about him showing up this week against a defense that, like you said, is one of the best against the pass. How important is it for him to have a big game?
Yeah, no, it would be huge. The thing is, the Dolphins had some success on the ground against the Jets. They popped a couple of big runs. In fact, they were pinned back. I think they had a 2nd and 16 from their 8-yard line at a key point in the game, and then Gaskin busted out a 20-yard run after bouncing it outside. So they had some runs. The thing is, with this running game, is the notion that you can go into a game counting on it to produce. Man, that's dicey. But having said that, since we know the strength of the Carolina defense is pass coverage combined with a really good pass rush, obviously it would make a huge difference if the Dolphin running game could get something going to alleviate some of that pressure. Whether that happens, that's one of the many challenges for the Dolphin offense on Sunday.
Now, Cam Newton playing in his first full game last week. And one of the things about the Dolphins defense also that I noticed is that one of the better teams against rushing the quarterback. Believe it or not, that defense is actually, I think, rushes the quarterback more than any other team in the NFL, or the highest percentage of it. I would think that this might play in favor of the Dolphins, since Cam Newton has not shown in his one game that he can throw the ball deep. And on a defense that rushes him quickly, that means if they know they can give up that deep pass to allow those weapons Carolina has, I would feel it would play into their scheme of things to go ahead and key on Christian McCaffrey. And if they can do that, that would fall in their favor. So I think it's going to be important for Cam, if he does plan on winning this game, to show that he can throw the ball deep so they push back a little bit.
Well, not only throw the ball deep, but I think also what he will need to do is make quick decisions in the face of the blitz, because the Dolphins, like I said, they've gone blitz crazy the last couple of games, and it's served them very, very well. And that leaves the quarterbacks, if the offensive line's not picking up the blitz, that means snap decisions and receivers needing to get open very, very quickly. And this is where the Dolphins' quality outside corners, Byron Jones and Xavier Howard, come into play. Now, I think back to the two games that Cam played against the Dolphins last year. It's two completely different games than the first game when he was with the Patriots, obviously. And the first game is Newton killed the Dolphins with his running. And the second game, he didn't run, and he threw the ball very poorly, and the Dolphins were the ones who ran the ball for 250 yards, which was completely outrageous, and nobody saw that coming. But they completely shut him down and kind of messed with his head with all their blitzing and didn't know who was coming where. So I think maybe even more so than being able to hit deep passes, you'll need to be able to make quick decisions in the face of a heavy pass rush.
Let's say, and of course it's hypothetical, but they're able to contain Cam, and they're able to contain Christian McCaffrey. How well do you think these cornerbacks match up with some of the offensive weapons like Robbie Anderson, G.J. Moore, who has an unbelievable amount of catches this year, Terrence Moore, and of course Tommy Tremble and Ian Thomas, who I believe are going to play a major role in this game due to the fact what you just said, Alan, that he's going to have to make quick decisions, and a lot of those passing decisions, if McCaffrey is covered, obviously would have to go to his tight ends. How do you think their cornerbacks match up to some of these offensive weapons?
It's a matchup that the Dolphins like pretty much week in and week out, because they do have two really those guys are really good. I know Byron Jones gets knocked on it quite a bit for giving up some completions. Well, guess what? Name me a cornerback in the NFL who doesn't give up completions. They all do. Xavier Howard, don't put the ball anywhere near him because he's going to pick it off. And then this year he's added stripping the ball away and recovering fumbles to his repertoire, and it's made him even more, effective as a cornerback. But those guys are really good, and they have two pretty solid slot corners in Nick Needham and Justin Coleman, who they got after he spent some time with the Seahawks and the Lions, who really struggled last year, and even early this year wasn't playing well, and he's picked up his game big time. And those two guys can cover. They have a really good-looking rookie safety and second-round pick, Javon Holland, who's really good in coverage. Eric Rose, a former cornerback, will see playing time also as a third safety. And a lot of times he's been asked to cover tight ends, and he does that very well. So the Dolphins have the corners to make their defense work. Again, how much of that, though, has been the quality of the opposition? How much of it has been they decided to stop messing around, just went back to their blitz crazy ways on defense? That we won't know. We won't know for sure until they beat a really good team. Again, Baltimore was one of those teams, but the fact it was a short week and then they were playing at home, that skews it a little bit. But I mean, they completely shut down the Ravens in that Thursday night game, as they did Houston and the Jets. Now the challenge is to do it against a pretty good Carolina team on Sunday.
So when you look at this Carolina team from the Dolphins' perspective, what scares you the most about this Carolina team that the Dolphins will have to overcome this weekend?
Without question, not even close. This is 1A and 1B. It's those two speed rushers on the outside, Brian Burns and Hassan Reddick. As we mentioned before, pass protection has been probably the number one overall issue for the Dolphins. If we're going to go from week 1 to now week 11, and while there was progress made against the Jets, as I mentioned earlier, it's still a shaky proposition for this offensive line. And when they're dealing with two good outside pass rushers like that, that's kind of a little bit worrisome. And then on earlier downs, then you have to deal also with Derek Brown in the middle of that defensive line. So that matchup is the one that scares me the most if I'm looking at it from a Dolphin standpoint.
If there's one thing you can say, speaking about Carolina, if Carolina does this, they will beat the Dolphins Sunday. What is it that Carolina needs to do?
Well, it goes back to to me, this game is going to come down to which team handles the other team's pass rush better. Because I can see Burns and Reddick causing Tua and the Dolphins offensive line all sorts of headaches, and I can see the Dolphins blitz causing Cam all sorts of headaches as well. And if one of those two offensive lines and in combination with a quarterback handle it better and are able to make some plays against that, I think that team is going to win the game.
Yeah, and I agree with you because the offensive line for the Carolina Panthers is not what you would call a better than average offensive line. They have their trouble as well. But also another thing that plagues the Panthers a lot, which they're going to need to correct if they even have a chance, is going to be they get too many offensive penalties that nullifies big plays. McCaffrey will run for 15, 20 yards, but he'll come back because of a holding penalty. So I would say that, you talk about the Dolphins with some issues on their offensive line. Similar things are definitely true with this Carolina Panthers team as well. Let me ask you before we run, Alan, you got to make a prediction. If you're going to make a prediction, say no way. Okay, let's do it this way. I won't hold you to a score or anything, but at the end of the day, is this a close game or not a close game?
Oh, I don't think there's any question it's going to be a close game. And in fact, I would say that the way the Dolphins are playing defense these days, every single one of their games is going to be a close game. Combined with the fact that their offense just is not very explosive, even if it's efficient. Like, for example, they played the Jets, who had given up, I think it was an average of 47 points and 475 yards in their previous 4 games, and the Dolphins didn't reach 400 yards, and they won 24-17. So the Dolphins are not good enough or not explosive enough to blow out any team, and their defense right now is playing too well to get blown out. So everything is going to be a tight game. I would expect it would be a fairly low-scoring game. As far as my prediction, I usually save that for my side on Saturday, and right now I'm kind of vacillating whether the Dolphins pull it out or not. I think it's going to be a tight game.
Well, the one thing they do have going for them is they are playing at home. So that can only help them, not hurt them. So we'll find out this Sunday. But, Alan, want to thank you so very, very much for joining us on Frankly Speaking Panthers. And I want to wish the best to you and your family. Happy Thanksgiving.
Well, thank you, Larry. Right back at you.
All right. Stay safe.
You too.
All right. That was Alain Poupart, publisher of All Dolphins for SI. He's covered the Dolphins for over 30 years. Ladies and gentlemen, we'll be back right after this. You are listening to Frankly Speaking Panthers on TobaccoRoadSportsRadio.com. Ladies and gentlemen, the other day I'm looking around and I'm saying, I need to become part of a Carolina Panthers group that stays positive even in these tough times. And I'll tell you what, boy, have I found a group, the Carolina Panthers Den. It's on Facebook and you need to join today. This is a group that stays positive, has a good time, and interacts with a lot of other different Carolina Panthers fans. If you want to have a great time and talk about your team, encourage your team in a way that is done very professionally, then become a member of the Carolina Panthers Den on Facebook. Make sure to join today. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Frankly Speaking Panthers. And what a great conversation with Alain Poupart, who covers the Miami Dolphins. And you heard several times him saying that defense is getting it together, but the offense is very weak. Well, we'll take that with a grain of salt because we played some offenses that haven't been too good, but we made them look like leaders in the NFL by the way we played. So we'll take it with a grain of salt, and hopefully those things will play a factor in the upcoming game coming up this Sunday. But we're going to go ahead as I switch over my things on the last segment of our show, which everybody loves. One of the things that everybody talks about here that listens to Frankly Speaking Panthers. We're giving a few more moments for a couple of moments for some of the other folks to join us. But once again, we want to thank Facebook Live, YouTube Live, Twitter Live, and Tobacco Road Sports Radio. All of those networks carrying Frankly Speaking Panthers tonight. So we're very, very happy with that. So thank you very much. But let's go ahead and get right into it. We got about 10 minutes left in our show. We'll do the keys to the Panthers win. Anybody wants to leave a comment under the comment section, go ahead and do so. We'll try to get to it before our show ends, and we'll try to either make a comment or a reply to that comment that you make about your Carolina Panthers. But, we talked about some of these things earlier in the show, but I'm going to hit them on it again. We need to win the line of scrimmage battle on both sides. We talked about that earlier in the show. It's very important. We have an offensive line that if they can stay away from getting silly, stupid penalties, we would be doing a good enough job. I still think Brady Christensen needs to be in there more. I think the offensive line is much better when he's a part of it. But at the end of the day, we got to stop the penalties. And once again, this is a defense that has gotten a lot better over the last 3 weeks. And they have a very high percentage of blitzing the quarterback, one of the highest, if not the highest, in the NFL. That means our offensive line needs to come to play. They need to put their big boy pants on and defeat the defensive line of the Miami Dolphins. On the other side of the football, we got to get back to doing what we do best, and that's putting pressure on Tua. We have to get a couple of sacks. We're going to have to get him to hurry, and by forcing him to do things he wouldn't do, it's going to cause him to make mistakes and hopefully turn over the football. We got to go ahead and cause some turnovers with the pressure that is put on Tua. Remember, they don't have much of a running game. They're averaging 77 yards per game. So, the only guy on that team that runs the ball is Myles Gaskins. And we're going to need to hold him, contain him, and keep them running 77 yards or less in order to win this game. As we go down to our next, let's move this along, is we need a balanced offense. This offense can't run around Cam Newton and Christian McCaffrey. Although the brunt of it and the main part of it is that you got to be able to mix it up with some other people, some other receivers. We already talked about Cam showing teams that he still has the ability to throw the ball more than 5 yards. Otherwise, they're going to cream us this game. I'll be right honest with you. Not only does he need to use Christian McCaffrey, utilize those tight ends. Those tight ends right now, they're utilizing the block, and a percentage of the time, that's what tight ends do. If you look at Gronkowski at Tampa Bay, one of the best blocking tight ends in all of the NFL. But there are other times that you can utilize your tight ends in the short passing game to get 7, 8, or even more yards. You got Ian Thomas. You got Tommy Tremble. Utilize these guys. Get them 10 catches between them in this game, and you will be successful moving the ball. And, we talked about Cam needing to throw the ball downfield. Okay? He's got to prove to this team he can throw the ball. Okay, that's it. If you can't hit Robbie Thompson or Terrence Marshall or DJ Moore downfield, you're not going to win in the National Football League. You're going to have to show you have a strong enough arm. And like I said earlier in the show, I'm hoping that what we didn't see last weekend was just a result of Cam not knowing the playbook. He has another 7 days to learn the playbook. He's going to get another 14 days after this game. Let's go 6-6. Give him 2 more weeks to learn the playbook, and we go in on fire to Buffalo and see what happens there. But he's got to be able to not only throw the ball to Christian McCaffrey or Amir Abdullah. He has to utilize his wide receivers, and he's going to have to throw the ball more than 5 yards in the air at a time. Got to. Third down execution. Execution being the key word. You have to be able to execute on third down. Terrible job last week. Third down, remember, folks, we talk about this week in, week out. It's no different versus Miami. You have to go down there and sustain long drives by executing on third down. And how do you execute on third downs? You get yardage on first and second down to make, if you do have a third down opportunity, very, very small amount of yardage to go. 2 yards, a yard or so. And hopefully, I know they don't always, but hopefully they will make those situations when you got a guy like Cam Newton who has tall and powerful as him, you should be able to get 2 yards between him and McCaffrey on third down. On the other flip side of the coin, our defense, which did not do a very good job last week, on stopping third down execution by Washington. You got to stop them on third down. Why do you got to stop them? Obviously, so they don't sustain long drives. And by them executing on thirds down, your defense is out on that field longer, like we talk about every week. The longer your defense is out on the field, the worse chance you have of winning a football game. You don't want your defense out there much. If your defense is on the sidelines, guess where your offense is? On the field. They're sustaining drives, taking time off the clock, and hopefully the end result is scoring 7 points. But you got to win both sides of third down execution. And what does that do for you, folks? It wins the time of possession battle. If you're winning the time of possession battle, it's a good sign. You don't always win, but if you're having the ball more than the other team and you're scoring, doesn't do no damn good if you're going to go 20-20 and not score. It's not going to do you any good. You have to execute in the red zone when you get down there and be able to score 7 points. You can't have Zane Gonzalez kicking field goals all day long and win games. You're going to need him at special times, and when his time comes, he has to convert, which he's been doing a terrific job at the entire season. But you got to win this time of possession battle so that defense can stay fresh. And when they come out, they don't just come out there. They come out with fire under their eyes. They blast the other team, and they get the ball back for your offense. Remember, Miami is not a team that scores a lot of points. We said this several times tonight. The more points that are scored in this game, it favors the Panthers as long as they're scoring points, unless it's Miami. But, Miami doesn't score a lot of points. They're averaging, 18.3, I think, points a game we talked about. So if you can score 21 or more points in this game, with this type of defense that the Panthers are capable of having, you should win this football game. Okay? You got to score points. We'll mention it again, folks, and it's worth mentioning again. Eliminate penalties. Week in, week out, these offsides penalties, these illegal procedure penalties, these holding penalties, it's costing you a lot of yardage. It's ruining the momentum and confidence of the players on the offense if it's done on the offensive side of the football. You cannot take away huge yardage and have it called back because of holding penalties. You got a Christian McCaffrey that last week that probably lost about 20 to 30 yards on rushes due to the fact that we had penalties on the offensive side of the football. 2 of them I know of being holding penalties. So at the end of the day, if you want to win this football game, eliminate penalties. And then last but not least, folks, and probably most important, players' accountability. And I'm not just talking about the coaches holding the players accountable. We talk about this a lot, okay? But this one is a little different. This is where the players have to hold themselves and each other accountable. Every single player out there has a job to do. They need to hold them accountable, hold themselves accountable for doing what they need to do on every play. If they do this, this team will win, and we will be 6-6 going into our bye week. On behalf of all of us here at Frankly Speaking Sports, once again, we want to wish you a very, very happy Thanksgiving to you and your family. And we'll be back next Wednesday night with Frankly Speaking Panthers at 9 p.m. Good night.